Hey everybody, what's going on? Welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'm continuing the series that I started for the Mastery trees. In episode 1, we went over the offense tree, so if you have not seen that yet, go ahead and hop back over there. Not only do I cover the offensive tree, but I also cover a lot of things about Masteries in general that I'm not going to recover in this video, just for the sake of time and redundancy. Or avoiding redundancy, I should say. So I'm just going to kind of jump right into this one. Basically, what I'm doing here is I'm just walking you through every single node in this tree, and the goal of the series is to just kind of make Masteries a little bit less intimidating for you. So again, if you haven't seen the offense video, go back in. I explain a little bit more about what the purpose of this is, and then we go over the offense tree. But here, we're just going to go ahead and jump right into it with the defense tree. So, first one is Tough Skin. Defense plus 75. Fairly straightforward, not a bad way to start this tree if you want to start this tree. Both of these are actually okay-ish. Resistance, it depends on the champion, of course. Arena defense, sometimes it's nice to have some resistance. And then even in some of the dungeons, resistance can be helpful. But I would think it's not make or break here. 75 defense is not super crucial. It is a nice bump, don't get me wrong. It is nice. But I think it's going to more depend on which direction you want to head for your second tier. For example, if you're going to want to go improved parry and, you know, rejuvenation for whatever reason, you wouldn't be able to do that if you started on the defense node, right? You'd have to start here. So just think about where you want to head from the first tier and then let that decide, because really defense is the better node overall, I would say, but there might be some examples where you want to go resistance, and there might be some examples where you want to head this way on the tree, so you have to start here anyway. So just keep that in mind. Second tier, to kick it off, we have Blast Proof. Decreases damage received from AoE attacks by 5%. Now, this is pretty nice. It's a nice little damage reduction for most places, to be honest. Most bosses have AoE. Clan boss has AoE. And in arena, a lot of the time, particularly on an arena, when you're building an arena defense, you're designing them to be able to take hits from AoE champs. So this is a pretty nice way to start across the board. There's very few places in the game you're going to go where AoE attacks are not going to be a thing. So Blast Proof is actually a pretty solid little mastery that you can kind of get right out of the gate if you're going defense tree on somebody. You know, you don't have to farm a ton of scrolls to get here, and a little 5% reduction in damage is nice. So pretty nice across the board. Next to that, we have Rejuvenation. Increases the amount of healing and the value of shield buffs this champion receives by 5%. Now again, this is another one that's pretty nice everywhere. If you've got a healer or a shield buffer on your team, then this is going to benefit whatever champ you put this on. They're going to get a little bit more healing, and they're going to get a little bit of extra shield. And depending on how you're building your support champs, there's masteries in the support tree that kind of stack on top of this one, so that it increases the amount of healing that a healer does. This will increase the amount of healing that you receive. So you can take some of the healers in the game that don't necessarily have really substantial heals, and with masteries and pairing them properly, make their heal much more viable for much later game scenarios and much more content in the game. So basically, anybody that you want to receive more healing and shield, this is a good place to start. Next to that, we have Mighty Endurance. Decreases the damage received by 10% if this champion has stun, sleep, or freeze debuffs. Again, pretty self-explanatory, and it's a nice one to have. I think this is more for routing down the defense tree. If there's something on this side you might want, maybe you'll go with this one, and it'll be a nice little bump. But generally speaking, you want to lean more towards avoiding getting these things put on you than benefiting in a way from having them on you. Now, there are some situations where you're just going to catch a stun. You know, the dragon likes to stun if he gets his special skill off. A lot of time in arena, you'll come across teams that like to stun and use these crowd control tactics. So if you end up with them on you, this will receive the damage, which maybe will increase the likelihood that you'll survive a cleave. I can say from my experience, my arena offense, I have it set up in a way where I defense break and then I try to AoE stun and then I try to kill, because my Skull Crown does more damage if the enemies are stunned. So anybody that has a defense with this mastery on it, they're kind of negating the bonus damage that my Skull Crown is doing because they're stunned. Right? So I think she does 12% extra damage to targets that are stunned, and this reduces the damage by 10%. So in essence, she's getting a 2% damage bump. So it can negate that, and if someone doesn't have that, then again, this could just further increase the odds that you'll survive if you do happen to get crowd control, which means maybe you can come back and recover from it, get some heals off, get some attacks off, things like that. Next to that, we have improved Parry. Decreases the damage received by this champion by 8% when this champion is hit with a critical hit. Now, this is an excellent one, because in general, you have to expect that you're going to be taking critical hits, right? Especially in arena. If you're building an arena defense, you have to plan on getting critted. It's just going to happen. People are building their attackers to land critical hits because that's how you ramp your damage up. So especially on your arena defense, this is an excellent one to have on the champs that you're going to be working on the defense tree for. Again, it's also nice really across the board. If you can reduce the damage anytime you take a critical hit, there's no reason not to do it. It's going to be helpful for you anywhere. And 8% is not a shabby reduction. That's a nice little bump in damage reduction. So pretty good mastery there. I'm actually a pretty big fan of that one. Starting tier 3 out, we have Shadow Heal. Heals this champion by 6% of their max HP each time an enemy is healed. Occurs once per turn. Now this is a nice one to have, and it's a pretty aggravating one to have. Sometimes things are going so fast you don't see it in arena. I tend to just kind of jump into arena and just run through my turns real quick. I have no heals on my arena offense anyway, but I'm not generally paying attention. But having this mastery can be annoying, especially on someone with substantial HP, like a Vrask. You'll hear me use Vrask as the example a lot, because he's got really good base HP. It's really easy to shoot his HP way up. So if every turn of he's healing by 6% of his own HP every time an enemy heals, this could get really annoying. And it could get even more annoying depending on who you have on your team that you're going against someone with this mastery. If you've got, is it Bad El Khazar that has the, every time he hits, he heals the team? Is it him or Scar? I get them mixed up. But anybody like that that's inherently healing every turn they get, they're kind of accidentally healing whoever has this mastery on every turn they get too, right? So it can be very aggravating. And then again, in something like Spider heals, Fire Knight heals, Spirit Keep heals. So, in Spider you can't block the heal, and the other places you can, but it's pretty self-explanatory. I think in PvP in particular, it can be pretty annoying against defenses that are trying to work themselves around stalling and healing. They're kind of going to sustain you in the same motion that they're sustaining themselves. So pretty nice. Can be kind of an annoying little mastery to deal with. Next to that, we have Resurgent. Has a 50% chance to remove one random debuff from this champion when they lose 25% of their max HP or more from a single enemy skill. So this, again, PvP and across the board in general, it's going to be nice. These debuff heavy dungeons, for example, dragons, he likes to go debuff heavy, and then he does hit pretty hard in the later stages, so it's not unreasonable to think you'd lose a quarter of your health. So you could cleanse a little bit of the debuffs that way. Same thing in arena. If you get hit, if you've got a tanky-ish team that can take a few hits, but attackers are still going to come in and hit them hard, this is an opportunity to cleanse debuffs. Ice Golem, now they put the heal reduction in the defense break up, the minions, so if they're still alive and Ice Golem hits you, there's a chance to cleanse that off. And that heal reduction, that is 3 turns, so an opportunity to cleanse that off would be pretty nice, after the Ice Golem hits you. So, again, just a nice precaution if you're going into an area that's debuff heavy with someone that also hits hard. again, arena defense, I set up my arena defense to land a defense break, and then my Fushan comes in, AoE stuns, and then Skullcrown comes in behind. Now, if my Fushan comes into AoE stun and hits someone and takes away more than a quarter of their health, which he usually does, anybody with this mastery has a potential to get rid of that defense break, which means that now my Skullcrown has to try to kill you without a defense break, which can be very annoying. So that's, I think, where it's going to shine the most is in arena defense situations where you're kind of going anti-cleave or just, you know, in general. I think it could be annoying even against a team that's not a cleave, but particularly for me, it can be annoying because I like to cleave. Next to that, we have Bloodthirst. Heals this champion by 10% of their max HP when they kill an enemy target. Cooldown 1 turn, so basically every turn. Now, this is one that I put on my Relic Keeper because every turn, if I've got him geared well enough, every turn he's killing someone. So if we hit a point where he doesn't and he has to take some hits, once he starts his cycle back over, he's just going to heal himself right back up. And it's been nice for campaign farming. It's nice when I use him in dungeons, Minotaur, Dragon, you know, on the trash clears, if he has to take a few hits. When he starts to get turns and get a few more kills, he can kind of heal himself back up without being on lifesteal. So it's really nice for that. It's nice for a campaign farmer that may take a few hits. It's nice for dungeon teams, for wave clearing, and it can even be nice in arena. If you've got an arena team that's not winning on the first turn or the second turn and you're taking a few hits and the fight's going to go on a little bit, a 10% heal on a kill is pretty nice. So not a bad one, but it shined for me on Relic Keeper. That was the one I made sure that I worked to. And when people tell me they're having trouble with their Relic Keeper when they come into the stream and ask me, you know, what changes do I need to make to my Relic Keeper? He's close, but he's not quite there yet. I tell him, go into Minotaur, farm out some green scrolls, and get this tier unlocked. This is a big help for Relic Keeper. So if you're in a position where you're struggling with your Relic Keeper, and you feel like he's just this close to being able to do what you need him to do, and you don't have this mastery on him yet, come on in and get this mastery and see if it doesn't make a difference for you. Next to that one, we have Wisdom of Battle. Has a 30% chance of placing a block debuffs buff on this champion for 1 turn when stun, sleep, or freeze debuffs expire on this champ. Now this one's kind of cool because it can keep you from getting into a situation where not only where you get continuously controlled, right? So maybe you're going against a team and their first turn CC debuff heavy. So lots of sleeps, lots of freezes, you know, things like that on first skills where they just kind of keep peppering these in on you. This can interrupt that, but beyond that, it gives you an opportunity to come back from being crowd controlled, and it makes it more likely that you'll be able to do whatever you need to do to recover from it. So maybe it's your healer, right? Maybe they're trying to control your healer. Your healer comes out of this, gets this block debuffs. Now they're very likely to go ahead and get all the way to their turn without being interrupted or debuffed or having their attack bar reset or whatever it is, and they're able to get their heal off. And you can kind of recover and maybe come back and win whatever the fight is. It's for situations like that. It is pretty nice. It can be aggravating, and I have seen this one pop up in arena defenses as well, where my Fushan will land his stun. Maybe Skullcrown doesn't get the kill. You know, maybe I land my stun, and he does enough damage to remove the defense break. Skullcrown doesn't get the kill. They come out of the stun and then get a block debuff, right? So it can kind of start to escalate, or not escalate, snowball maybe, paired with the right masteries. Starting off what are we on, the 4th tier? Solidarity increases ally resist by 5% for each buff placed on them by this champion. This one I'm not super into, to be honest, because there's not a ton of champs that place a ton of buffs where this would be a noticeable bump in resist. You know, I don't know. This one's, you know, if you want to give it a shot, give it a shot. I just feel like it's not a substantial enough bump in your resist. And it's, you know, for instance, Steel Skull, like he defense buffs the whole team, so the whole team would get a 5% bump in resistance. But, you know, I just don't feel like this one is that interesting to me. If you get someone that's super buff heavy, and you can get, you know, a 15-point bump and resist for everybody, that's one thing, but that's rare. So there's not even a lot to talk about there. It's pretty self-explanatory, right? If you don't know the way that resistance works, what happens is, in order for a debuff to be placed, there's a few things it has to get through. So you'll notice there are some skills that say has a 30% chance of landing a defense break. And then there are some skills that just say lands a defense break. If it says it has a 30% chance to land a defense break, that means it has a 30% chance to proc. Proc is programmed random occurrence. So it has a 30% chance to proc. If it procs, it then has to roll your accuracy against the enemy's resistance. Now, it does not mean if your accuracies are higher than their resistance, you'll always land. There is some equation that I don't know, but probability is involved, and chance is still involved. So even if I've got 150 accuracy and the enemy has 20 resistance, there's still a chance that I lose that roll, right? So you have to proc from whatever chance there is for it to happen, then you have to roll your accuracy, then you have to win the roll. And that's how the debuff is landed. So the higher your resistance, the higher you're increasing the chances that that debuff does not get landed on you. And then for skills that just say lands a defense break, there's no proc. It's just roll accuracy versus resistance, right? So in that sense, that's where resistance is important. It's also important for blocking, getting buff stripped. So like if you've got an attack buff or a defense buff and an enemy tries to strip it, same thing, it has to roll accuracy versus resistance. If they want to reduce your attack meter, they have to roll their accuracy versus resistance. So it comes into play a lot. I'm not saying it's not an important stat. I just feel like for a tier 4 mastery, I just don't think this is a substantial enough bump in resistance. Does that make sense? If it was 10 for each buff, then it would be... Then I would feel a little bit differently about it, but I just don't feel like it's substantial. There's not enough champs that stack buffs in a way that would make that matter. You know what I mean? To me. Next to that, we have Delay Death. Reduces the damage this champion receives from a specific enemy by 0.75% with each hit taken from that enemy. Damage reduction stacks up to 6% for each enemy. I like this one for Clan Boss a lot, right? Clan Boss is the only enemy. They're really long fights. This is going to stack up on everybody you put it on fairly quickly. It's also nice for longer dungeon fights. If you set up an arena team that's designed to be there for a while, this will stack up. But I think really where this really shines is Clan Boss. You know, 6% reduction for the rest of the fight, basically. Because, again, this will stack up pretty quickly. 6% damage reduction can be pretty nice, especially if you're also stacking an attack break on him and things like that. So I think that's a decent Clan Boss mastery. Next to that, we have Harvest Despair. Has a 60% chance of placing a Leech debuff for 1 turn when placing Stun, Sleep, or Freeze debuffs. So, again, this one's kind of specific, depending on who you want to put it on. Also, too, this one's kind of tricky because it can be anyway. So, for example, like my Fushan places stun debuffs, but I'm not going defense tree on him, right? I'm going offense tree and support tree on him. So you have to find a champ that is going to be placing these debuffs and that you're going to want to go defense tree on. And if they're placing these debuffs, you're probably going to want to go support tree for the opportunities to boost accuracy, right? So I feel like there's not a lot of opportunity for this to matter a bunch. Maybe, I guess, in cases where you're going defense tree and you're going to use sets that could place stun or sleep, right? The daze or the stun set or a frost set. You know, maybe maybe situations like that. Like I plan on building an Atur on Frost at some point. So I don't know if it counts if someone hits me and gets frozen from my Frost. I don't know if this would proc that. I guess I'll come in and experiment with it. In situations like that, it could be really cool and really fun. But, and again, I don't know all the champs off the top of my head. I'm sure there are champs that are going to fit right into this really well. But I feel like it can be a little tricky. But it is a nice one, especially if it's AoE. If they're landing these debuffs AoE and they put a leech on everybody, that could be pretty cool. Especially in arena, longer arena fights. Am I losing my voice? What's going on here? Longer arena fights. You can't place it on dungeon bosses or clan boss because you can't put those debuffs on them. But so I guess really arena is the place that you would want to try this, because I guess wave clearing and higher level dungeons, it could be helpful if you give your whole team a little bit extra lifesteal for the ones that aren't on lifesteal, and you know, maybe it makes it easier for your healer to keep up. But I feel like that's more of an arena mastery. Stubbornness increases resist by 10 for each debuff on this champion, stacks up to 30. So like here we've got a situation where the resist catches a pretty substantial bump, right? But the debuffs are already there. So you get the resist for the amount of time that the debuffs are on you, but you lose it when they're off. So again, it's just another weird one to me. I mean, I guess in a sense it keeps extra debuffs from getting stacked on you. Maybe. But it's just a weird one. I feel like they just felt like they needed to throw some stuff in this tree for resistance, and these are the two they went with, and I just think they're weird. You know what I mean? I just think they're a little weird. You're only benefiting... Any mastery that you're only benefiting when you're debuffed is strange to me. Unless you're cleansing them, right? If it's a situation where you're potentially cleansing the debuffs, that's different. But to just get a resistance bump from being debuffed is a very strange way to set it for me. I don't know that I would ever work my way down to this mastery on purpose. You know what I mean? I just don't feel like it's interesting enough. Yeah, I just don't feel like it's that interesting, to be honest. Below that, we have Selfless, or kicking off tier 5, we have Selfless Defender. Decreases the damage an ally receives from the first enemy hit in each round by 20%. This champion will receive that damage instead. So this is really good for, like, arena, where maybe you're setting up a team where you've got a tank that's designed to maybe provoke and, you know, kind of take damage for the team. This is really nice. It can keep your damage dealers and your squishier champions alive longer for sure, because 20% is a pretty substantial reduction in damage. So on the right champion, this one could be pretty aggravating. And it's from each enemy, right? It's not just the first time they're hit. It's... if I'm reading it correctly, it's from the first enemy hit. First enemy hit. Yeah, I guess I don't know if that means the first time they're hit or the first hit from each enemy. Maybe if it was from each enemy, they would have worded it a little bit differently. So maybe first... Although, what other kind of hit is there than an enemy hit? Right? Decreases the damage an ally receives from the first enemy hit in each round by 20%. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it means from each enemy or the first hit overall. It's just weird to say first enemy hit because there's no other kind of hit. I'm going to assume actually that it means the first hit in the round. So dungeon runs, it could be helpful for keeping someone alive. on the way to the boss. Sometimes the waves in the dungeons can be harder than the actual boss. So your tank, this could help them. This could help your whole team survive on their way to the boss. It could be nice in arena, reducing the damage that your squishier champs take and letting your tank actually tank that damage for them. It's kind of like a cover situation where you don't necessarily absorb all the damage, but you take 20% of it. So it can be nice, but it's definitely for your tanks. It's definitely to help your squishier champs survive longer. Weirdly worded. I'm not real sure. I'm still not 100% sure exactly how that one works, but either way, you get a general idea. So if you decide to try, I have not tried it out yet. If you decide to try it out, and want to come back and let us know in the comments exactly how it works, that would be great. Next to that, we have Cycle of Revenge. Has a 50% chance of increasing the turn meter by 15% when an ally is attacked with a critical hit. Will only increase the turn meter once if an ally receives multiple critical hits from a single skill. Now this one's really cool because there's no cooldown on it. It's not like happens once per turn or anything. So if the enemy team is critting you a lot, critting your team a lot, whoever has this can be getting quite a good bit of turn meter bump from it. And this one's nice on your healers. Anything to help your healers turn cycle. Healers, cleansers, things of that nature. So someone, or even someone like a Rain Beast who's really aggravating every time he gets a turn. This could help him turn cycle as his team's getting hit and stack those continuous heals up. Especially something like a Retaliation or Avenging Rain Beast. This could be pretty aggravating. So, but that's what it's for. It's for your support champs. I guess in situations where you'd be going anyone that can do damage, it could be nice to help them get more turns too, but this is really more for your support. This is so that you can cycle back around to your heals, your revives, your cleansing, buffing, things of that nature. And it can be good in arena, it can be good in dungeons. This is another one that's pretty good across the board. Even in clan boss, anything to help you turn cycle is nice. And just to double check, that was, yeah. Next to that, we have Retribution. Has a 50% chance to counterattack when this champion loses 25% of their max HP or more from a single enemy skill. I'm a big fan of this one. I really like this one a lot. I've actually won some fights in arena because I have this on my Skull Crown. So I don't have Retaliation on my Skull Crown, but I do have this. And she's not very tanky, so it's not that hard for her to lose a quarter of her health from one hit. And this is a free hit, right? This is a free hit for Skull Crown. So this is pretty nice. Again, it can be nice on multiple champs. This is a pretty cool one in general because, again, it's not really that rare that you're going to be taking 25% of your max HP from a hit. Especially later in the dungeons, clan boss, arena. Even on the tankier champs like Vrask and some of these champs with super high HP, it's still not going to be that uncommon because you're going to have champs coming in that hit really hard. So any opportunity to counter is going to be nice. If Vrask counterattacks and crits, he's going to heal his whole team. If Skull Crown does it, she's going to do quite a bit of AoE damage. If Rain Beast does it, he's going to stack more continuous heals, right? So I'm actually this is one of my favorite masteries in this tier, to be honest. I really like Retribution. I think it's useful everywhere, and on the right champ, it can make or break a fight. Like I said, I've won quite a few fights in the arena because my Skull Crown proc this once or twice. So very, very nice mastery. Deterrence has a 20% chance to counterattack an enemy when they apply a stun, sleep, or freeze debuff on an ally. Again, this is a nice one for anybody that you want to use their first skill. So again, Skull Crown, Rain Beast, Vrask, anytime your ally gets crowd controlled, there's a 20% chance you're gonna cleanse, or I'm sorry, attack. What I was gonna say is I don't think there's any champion that has a cleanse associated with their first skill where they could potentially proc this, use their first skill, and cleanse that crowd control debuff off of their ally. I don't know of any champions like that off the top of my head. If there was one, this would be the thing to put on them for sure. But again, it's basically for situations where You know, kind of similar to the last one, except instead of it having to happen to them to counter, it happens to an ally, right? Same situation though. Pretty nice mastery. And then down to tier 6, we have Iron Skin, defense plus 200. Pretty self-explanatory. 200 is a decent bump to your defense. So if there's someone that you want to have more defense, this is a great one. Not a lot to talk about on that one. Bulwark. 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 Decreases the damage all allies receive by 5%. This champion will receive that damage instead. There's no cooldown. There's no stipulation. It's across the board. Whoever you put this on is going to absorb 5% of the damage that the team receives for the whole fight. So again, for your tankier champions, you know, you want to put this on champions that can handle receiving all that extra damage, but can be pretty effective. Help you keep the rest of your team, your squishier members of your team, alive a lot longer. So arena defense, the dungeons, later in the dungeons where the bosses are hitting really hard. If you want to tank up a champ and put him in clan boss, you know, it's pretty good everywhere. Next to that, we have Fearsome Presence. Increases the chances of placing a stun, sleep, freeze, or provoke debuff from skills or artifacts by 5%. Again, fairly self-explanatory. Any champions that have a chance to land these, this will bump it up. This bumps the chance up, right? So this is not an increase in accuracy. This is an increase in likelihood to proc. So Seeker has the first turn provoke. This will bump up his opportunity to proc that provoke by 5%. Fushan has a chance to AoE stun. This would bump up his chance to stun, his chance to proc to roll the accuracy to stun. So this one I wouldn't say is so much situationally as far as where you're at in the game. This is situationally on the champ. If it's important to you that a particular champion is landing these things, then this would be the way to go. So like when I build my Atur and I finish his mastery tree, I'm probably going to go with this one because the whole reason I'm building him, the whole purpose of building him is for him to land his provokes, right? His provokes and the freezes because he is going to be on frost as well. So it's cool that it's on skills and artifacts. So stacking it can be beneficial. And just to be clear, if you put a stun set on a champ that has stun, it does not stack onto the skill. So let's say they have a 20% chance to stun, and then the set gives them, I don't remember what the set gives them. Well, let's say it's a, what is it, 30% chance to stun? I don't remember. That does not mean you now have a 50% chance to stun, right? It's just two individual rolls. On one, you have a 20% chance to proc it. On the other, you have a 30% chance to proc it. In my experience, in any other game I've ever played, that is the way it has worked. I guess I have to say I'm not 100% sure that's how it works in this game. But in any other game I've ever played, they do not stack on top of each other. They roll individually. So it's a 20% chance and a 30% chance, individual rolls. That is something to keep in mind. But yeah, based on the champ, situationally, not necessarily where in the game, right? And then last but not least, but maybe least, Unshakable resist plus 50. Pretty self-explanatory. It is a nice bump to resistance. Don't get me wrong. I just don't know if it takes precedence over the rest of these masteries. I don't know if a 50% bump in resist is going to be worth missing out on the other masteries. I guess if you're in a situation where you don't need this one, I guess only in a situation where you don't need any of these and you don't want tier 6 from either of the other trees, right? I just don't think you're ever going to want to take 50 resistance over every other tier 6 mastery, basically. So there's not a lot to unpack there. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's resist plus 50. So and that's how I feel about it. If you want to do it, go ahead. Resistance is not a bad stat. It's just, you know, should that take precedence over all the other masteries? I don't know that I think it should. So that's going to wrap up the defense tree. I hope that this broke it down for you guys and helped you understand how, you know, the application of some of these masteries, and some examples of champs that could be useful on places in the game that could be useful. Makes it a little less intimidating. That's the whole point of the series. So hopefully I accomplished that a little bit with this video. So soon I will be putting out the support tree, and we'll be done with the mastery breakdowns. If you want to use mastery guides in the meantime, while you're still trying to learn the mastery trees, feel free to do them. Find them wherever you can. In our Discord server, there's a link in the description for our Discord. If you want to join our Discord, we do have a channel dedicated to mastery suggestions, where you can go in and just kind of Control F, search for a hero that you, or a champion that you want to see masteries for. And if anyone in the community has uploaded their mastery tree, you'll be able to see it. There's also a request channel where if maybe we don't have a champ up yet, you can request a particular champ, and if anyone in the community has one built, they'll show you. Or maybe if someone wants to go in and just draw out a diagram on what they think would be good masteries, you know, we do that too. So aside from that, Discord's just fun. It's a way to keep in touch with me and the community. We talk about the game, we talk about other stuff, we goof around. So feel free to join the Discord if you would like. There is a link in the description. Other than that, I hope this video was helpful. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, of course, drop them in the comments. If you have any comments, drop them below. Any information that you think would be helpful for everybody. Maybe there's something I didn't go over, or there's a scenario I didn't consider for a particular mastery. You know, nothing wrong with having more information in the comments. So I appreciate you watching. Hope it was helpful, and I'll see you guys in the next one.